We're ready to get started. This workshop is to do with the future of work. And we're talking about the world's changing, and actually started changing about 20 years ago, which is what paying attention. Artificial intelligence and automation is making the shift. You hear people consistently talking about AI without really defining what AI is and why you should know it. And we're using technology and we're using the PCs and the tablets and the phones that we use without understanding the underlying girth that supports it. And the fact that there's a tremendous need and a tremendous job availability to go into this program. Today in the program we have Dr. Chris Irvin, Department of Education. We have Larry Ham from Pop, people already from out of Newark, and Jakarta Zoe from Informa. All of these people know about where the future work is going to go and why you should be paying attention and incentivizing your kids to take another look at where they're going and what education they're getting, and then figuring out where to go to get what they're missing. But without any ado, I'm going to start off with Dr. Chris Irvin, the Department of Education, State of New Jersey.
Thanks so much.
There we go.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Come on, we can do better than that. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I mean, I know we had some, I don't know if they had grits out, but I want to make sure that, no? But I missed it, okay? But I just want to make sure we are up and we are here. My name is Christopher Irving. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Education under the offices of our Commissioner, Dr. Angela Allen Millen, who I serve directly under, and of course reporting to our Governor, Phil Murphy. I'm very happy to be here and talk about the future of work, and especially, I will say, from our standpoint, the future of education and the opportunities that exist within education, especially for Black and brown men. And we can delve into other areas for sure. But we are at the height of this educational shortage in this country. New Jersey is experiencing it, and other states are. And so states are indeed now in competition with each other for talent. And I think many of us are realizing that in order for us to attract, retain, or obtain talent, we got to create our own pipeline for that matter. The Department of Education, through the Governor's vision and leadership, has put together several pilot programs throughout the state, and we can talk more about that, to incentivize individuals who may want to transition from another job into the education field. But also we have programs now, the pilot programs that exist in trying to attract specifically men of color. And that is the thrust of, one of the thrusts, of what our Governor and our Commissioner is focused on. Equity is not just a buzzword of the Department of Education. We are sincere about diversifying the teacher workplace. And to do that, it's going to take work. It's going to take people like yourself, people like these young people sitting at this table. I see some folks from Rosa Parks High School in Patterson. Really? Okay, cool. That's where I graduated from. So, and I remember being your age, sitting at a table like that, and I think in Brunswick, when I was your age at the Black History Convention. So you're in a good place to be. So excited to be here and excited to have the conversation, talking about the ways in which those folks who might be non-traditional, or how to help create stronger pipelines for Black folks, folks of color, and Black males specifically to get into the education field. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Larry Ham. I'm the chairman of the People's Organization for Progress in Newark, and I'm a new grandfather. My grandson Eli was born 36 hours ago. Just about 12 hours ago, I was at the hospital, Montefiore. Eli is the son of my daughter Nia and her husband Jason. This is their first child and my first grandchild. And, that's my introduction. that's all that's on my mind this morning. I'm sitting in for James Harris, my mentor. Anyone who knows anything about my background know that James Harris and I go back 60 years. He was my mentor. He was my first track coach. And he himself has an illustrious history. For health-related reasons, he couldn't be here this morning, and he asked me to fill in for him. And I'm glad to do so, to participate in the discussion that we're going to have on the future of work. Thank you.
My name is Chicago Zoe. I'm what some may call a world-class researcher. I've been researching for companies, for entertainment companies, for private companies for about 30 years. I'm 65 years old now. And I came to the conclusion after doing some research for this company about an article that was posted called The Rise of the Useless Class. It's called The Rise of the Useless Class. And I started this research in 2017 after seeing this article. And it frightened me to a large degree because although we try our best to educate our kids for the future, there are others who are crafting the future right around us. And between AI, robotics, highly educated immigrant class who are moving into the country, there's going to be not just upper, middle, lower, or the useless class created. I'm quite sure some of the people have heard about this income plan that they were talking about doing for people, giving them a set income where they don't have to work. That's part of the creation of the useless class. As time goes on and this automation continues to ramp up, there's not going to be jobs, as we know. They're not going to be there. And they're talking about very clearly that that there's going to be a population that they're going to have to find something to do or phase them into other communities that will be self-supported, self-contained, and that is all that they will be. So we have data going back 5-6 years. We are willing to share this data, won't cost you anything, and a strategy for how to help students navigate the pitfall of becoming part of the useless class. So that's what I'm here to discuss today. Thank you.
We thought this was important to talk about. When I worked for AT&T, I came out of corporate. I was in IT, came out of the military in IT. And I recognized then that we were MIA. 175 people in my squadron, 4 blacks. This is a high-end group. High-end job, doing radio, radar, doing technology that we still don't know what we have today within the military complex. But the thing that I knew very quickly that was missing was folks who looked like me. What I started realizing then was that I needed to do something different. So what I did was I incentivized my own children to go to NGIT, to work with the data processing people from AT&T, to learn to do that. And the one thing I told them very clearly, if you're in IT, if you're in AI, if your boss don't like you, and you don't like your boss, you can walk out tomorrow and be hired an hour later. You have to understand where technology is moving, and the fact that the people inside of those technology industries already know what they need. Our problem is we don't know what we need. And our schools are not necessarily equipping us to get where we need to go, which means we need to find outside organizations and outside entities to help us move forward. Tell me, is everybody in here got an iPad or a tablet? Use your phone? Do you know how it works? Do you know why it works? And if it breaks, where do you go with it? Android came about. Does anybody remember how long? 20 years ago. I worked with a company to develop Android 0.5. After we got through building it, the first thing we recognized was that the motherboard we built it on was obsolete. So we had to go back to the drawing board. But I'm saying you have to understand that technology has been around for a minute. We're using the technology, but we don't know how the technology works. If it's broke, and you can't go in and interrogate it, or you don't know where to get the diagram to interrogate it with, what do you have to do? You go to somebody who generally don't look like you. Because there's no places, basically, that has people that look like you. Now, that should be an eye caller and eye wake up right there. But Chris, tell us about education, where we're going to go in this state, and is the state addressing the need for AI and the need to train kids in a different curriculum than what currently exists?
Thank you. So at the Department of Education, there are several initiatives focused on sustainability, environmental justice, and STEM specifically. There have been grants, doled out, from the department, but also a great deal of funds coming through the RPESR fund, the COVID fund that folks, have been probably accustomed to reading about. And so I want to be clear that probably now more than ever, at least for a short window of time, for the next, 2 more, 3 years or so, in the 2 years preceding it, your districts have probably received more funds than ever, to help address or remediate learning when it comes to young people. The question is, what are we, and I say we in a universal sense, what are we doing with those funds? And how are we maximizing those funds to ensure that young people, and the research is starting to be clear now, that coming out of the pandemic, there have been some grave setbacks to learning in young people across all demographics, across all communities, and across all colors. And so, at the Department of Education, through the leadership of our commission, we have continued to work, providing assessments, providing information, to districts, providing best practices for how they continue to work through, this pandemic coming out of it. But I will also say, as a former superintendent of schools, we have to, and I mean we as us, we have to have much better conversations with young people about being able to monetize why education has value. And I don't believe we do that enough with young people. I think we tell young people to go to school because they just should, as opposed to telling young people to go to school because one day you'll make money, or you'll wear suits, or you'll be able to drive cars, or wake up in the morning and say, I want to go to Hawaii, and you can. See, we don't associate, other folks do, other places. They make it very clear to their kids, you need to go to school because one day you're going to read and become a doctor and a lawyer. When you become a doctor or a lawyer, you're going to be able to let build your own house. You drive mommy and daddy around and send us places we got to go. Those conversations have to be normal commonplace in our communities. And we don't do them enough. We send kids to school because we know it's the right thing to do. That is just culturally what we've been accustomed to as a people. But having conversations around the monetization of what education means for young people is so critical and important. Boy, wake up, get out of bed. And it's not just to go to school, but because if you stay longer, that means you're going to be behind a bigger race of other people who are chasing the same opportunities that one day you're going to be chasing as well. And I think we have to give our young people credit. These kids who are here, these young men and women who are here are probably one of the smartest, most empathetic, most tech savvy, most tech accessible generations in the history of human existence. And so we need to treat them as tech savvy, smart, innovative, and absolutely willing to move themselves forward. And I think we need to give young people the benefit of the doubt and let them know how much the work that they're doing today will indeed impact what it means tomorrow, and put some dollars behind it and help them understand what those dollars are.
Go. The topic today is the future of work. I have so many thoughts swirling around my head at this moment about this issue that I really don't know where to begin. One of the, first of all, let me say this. Everyone has a smartphone. The first thing that I would urge people to do is to subscribe to some websites that actually deal with science and technology. A lot of us have these phones, and we have all these apps, and very few of us have any apps or subscribe to any websites or Facebook pages that actually deal with science and technology. How many of us were taken by surprise when they started talking about computers? I am old enough to remember when I started working at my last job assignment, when there were no computers on desks. How many people remember that? There were no computers on desks. Never mind laptops. We had like computers, right? And then when they put the computers on our desk, we were like, email? Why do I have to email a person who is sitting right next to me? When I was studying for my master's degree in business administration, I had to take a course. And in one of the courses, they were discussing what they called at that time handheld devices. This was before cell phones. Now I'm trying to sit there and figure out what these handheld devices were going to be. It never occurred to me that they were going to take the telephone and literally make the telephone into a computer. Why am I saying this? If you knew what actually is being produced now in the area of technology, in the area of artificial intelligence, you would be dumbfounded. I saw a quote recently from Elon Musk, and he's not one of my heroes, but I'm only quoting him as a reference. He said that artificial intelligence would be able to outstrip human intelligence in just a matter of a few years. It's frightening what's being planned. But what's more frightening to me is that this future is being planned without Black people. And I want to say to the students who are in here today, save yourself. Plan your future. Because if you don't save yourself, no one else will. One of the things that troubles me is when I go to speak at different places, I'm called upon from time to time. I usually don't get re-invited because they don't like what I'm saying. But when I go to the elementary schools and to the high schools, the number of young women in the graduating classes in the 8th grade and in the 12th grade outnumber the boys by 3 to 4 times. Am I telling the truth or am I making this up? Has anybody been to a graduation and see this? They have the girls sitting on one side and the boys sitting on the other, and the girls' side go all the way up to the middle of the auditorium, and the boys' side be the first 2 rows. We should be outraged by this. Our children are filling the jails and the prisons and the morgues. So we're in this building today for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let me say quickly, because we want to have a discussion. Many of us care about our children, and I know I did it, and I know you did it. We raise our kids. Our kids can hardly speak yet, and we're teaching them how to read, and that's a wonderful thing. But you know what else we should be doing? We should be teaching them math. By the time they are in the 2nd grade, they are already behind in their math skills. And I don't care whether they're in a public school or whether they're in a charter school. And the gap in mathematics grows with each passing grade. We think that our country is the best of all possible worlds. Do you know we are not number 1 in mathematics in the world? You know who's number 1? China. China is number 1. Math and technology is the future. And if we want our children to succeed, we should prepare them. Now that doesn't mean they all gotta be in math, but they should at least have the basic preparation so that they can survive regardless of what profession they choose. I remember there was a book, you showed this book, but y'all remember the book by Sam Yet, The Choice? Sam Yet wrote The Choice in 69, 68. He could already see, you could already project what was going to happen to black people. Prisons are built right now based on the success level of our children in elementary school. Am I right on this, or am I making this up? The number of prison cells is based on the number of children who are failing in the primary grades. That's right. So I just want to say a few things. One, it's not just about your skill level. The future of labor also depends on civil rights. The future of work also depends on civil rights. I don't care how many damn skills you got, how many programs how much code you can do, our people are still discriminated against. We are still discriminated against. So right now, the Supreme Court is taking up a case dealing with affirmative action. There's a relationship between science and technology and our struggle for justice. So we have to make sure that these companies are not engaging in discrimination and locking us out. The other thing is the importance of unions. You think this is the best of all possible world? United States is almost last in every category of the 34 advanced industrial countries in this world. You think this is the best of all possible worlds? We don't even have paid sick leave for all workers. You know what is one of the indices of one of the reasons why Sweden, Norway, Denmark have the highest standard of living, and not only the highest standard of living, but the highest rate of happiness of their citizens. Do you know that there's actually a rate of happiness? It's not just based on income. It's like, how much do you love your country? Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Scandinavia, and Finland have the highest rate of happiness. You know why? Because they take care of their people. Paid sick leave, paid child leave, free college, a guaranteed living wage for everybody, guaranteed universal health care. But you know why they have all that? Because all of those countries have a 90% unionization rate. It's like almost against the law to have workers and not to have them in a union. You know, and I know black people have had a lot of problems with unions, but the point is that right now, union workers are making higher wages than many of our people with college degrees. And some of them don't even have college degrees. That's what unions do. They get more money for their people. So whatever the future is, if they are workers, these workers have to be unionized. Green jobs. The industries that will be built to correct environmental degradation are going to be industries of growth. Solar, wind, hydro, geothermal. These are the industries of the future because they are tied to our existence as human beings. Because we have so polluted the environment that we are facing an existential crisis at this moment. The future, the very future of humanity is at stake, and we don't even know. We don't even know. Do you know that the atmosphere is so polluted? They just came out with a report, George. The atmosphere is so polluted that rainwater all around the world is too polluted to drink. So the industries that will correct, that will remediate these situations are going to be growth industries. Those are industries that we should be looking at. And why do we have a teacher shortage? I mean, how is it that athletes, and I love athletics, but how is it that athletes make more than teachers? I just can't, to this day, I can't grasp that. How is it that athletes make more than teachers? The teachers who prepare the next generation to take over from us, to run the country, to run the industry, to do everything, they pay them. Teachers got to work 2 jobs. That's an abomination. How could it be that we got a 9,000 teacher shortage in Florida? We got a teacher shortage. Teachers used to be the profession that most black people aspire to. Not just because of its profession, but because of the role it served in uplifting the community. And now we can't even get people to be teachers because we won't pay them a decent wage. There is no future of labor without teaching. Somebody got to do the teaching. And the last thing I'll say, because I know I'm talking too long, but this is what happened. I'm a senior citizen now, so I can talk as long as I want. No, I'm just joking. Technology, science, and social consciousness. There's a facile relationship. In the 60s, we had to fight for black studies. There were no certified black studies departments before 1966. They were all created during the Black Power movement. There were no black studies programs. We fought for those things. We fought for our history to be taught. And then somewhere in the 90s, we said, we don't need black history anymore. We just need science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We do need science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But we also need Black history, Black culture, Black studies. And let me say why. You remember World War II? You remember Hitler? You remember Nazi Germany? Do you know Nazi Germany had the most advanced science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? Do you know that our space program, NASA, was in part built by scientists from Nazi Germany that we brought here after World War II? Werner von Braun? We brought him here. He invented the V-2 rocket. Rocket technology was invented by the Nazis. But you know what also the Nazis invented? They invented concentration camps. They invented mass murder, means of gas chambers. They invented those. See, technology that is not guided by morality and ethics is a dangerous tool. And I'll end on that. Thank you.
There is no mistake why we are where we are educationally in this country. When you are a researcher, the first thing you do is go to the origins of that thing. When did it get started? Why did it get started? Who financed it? There's an incredible book out there called Dummy Understanding, which was preceded by another book called The Historical Origins of the American Education System. What we see today was planned 100 years ago. It's no mistake that systems are failing. It was planned and paid for. One of the financiers of the program says, I don't want thinkers, I want workers. So we're going to transform the German educational system, bring it to America, and create more of an indoctrination system than an educational system. In my research, I'm always pushed to be compelled by survival. The thought of survival and what it's going to look like. Being a father of 3 sons, I'm thinking about survival all the time when I research. And when you start looking at the raw data and the research, what you find surfing to the core of it is economics is warfare. Education is warfare. Housing is warfare. The techniques used to control these systems have warfare components interwoven inside of them. Where I think the educational system is failing, and where there's new data for the creation of the uses class, and I was going to bring this book up last, but I'm compelled to bring it up now. If you want your family and your children and grandchildren to navigate through this plan for the useless class, The Mature Mind by H.R. Overstreet is extremely powerful. Let me say why. When kids get to a certain age, we tell them to act their age. It's time for you to act your age. But do we give them techniques and strategies for getting there? We don't. We think magically 18, you're supposed to act like this, 21, 25, 30. There's strategies and techniques for creating a mature mind. When this book came out, the author got harassed by the system. He never wrote another book after this. Because it was so powerful in changing lives at the time, and it was written in 1940 by H.R. Overstreet, The Mature Mind. It is a tool unlike any that I have found. Give you a little brief history on myself. My father couldn't read. He came from the South, 15 in the family. Custer, Georgia. But what he did with me was, for every book you complete, I'll pay. So when you want those Pro Kids or those Adidas or this or that, the other, we're gonna go to the back porch and we're gonna have a talk and you're gonna show me what books you've read and what did you learn from that book. And he would pay me cash. Today, my personal library is 1,400 books read from cover to cover. I kept that going because reading is at the core of it. If you're not a lifelong reader, you're going to miss out on so much. You're not going to evolve the way you should evolve. And you're not going to get it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but you have to read. That is the gift that my father gave to me. That is why I am so in love with research, because it gives you the strategies and techniques to navigate this kind of system that we're living in today. Thank you.
As we move along, understanding where we came from. It's not talking about schools anymore. The first 500,000 people killed in World War II by Hitler were black. You keep hearing people talk about Holocaust without understanding who the first victims of Holocaust were. If you don't read, you don't see it. Because you won't find it in your school books in the schools because they magically don't appear. It is about understanding where we're going. Technology is nothing more than a stepping stone. It will not make you who you are. What makes you who you are is what you've read, what you've understood, and what you know about your own personal culture. We don't have things to teach us our culture in our own country. Think about that. If you do history and historical research and historical data, you don't always know where we came from. But in order to do that, what must I be able to do? I gotta be able to read and comprehend. Reading and comprehension will allow you to take advantage of technology and be able to use it to your best benefit, but it's not going to make you get to your end goal. Your end goal is to prepare the generation to follow you as it moves up. What we're trying to do now in this generation is to help you move up. And understanding that values are not created by dollars. Values are created by the culture from which you came. If you think about the fact that when you go to school, you're worried about getting shot before you go home, speaks a lot about our values. It's something we've accepted as a norm. Wasn't a norm when I grew up. When people got killed, the neighborhood got upset and somebody told who did it. Because that person is showing that he doesn't believe in my culture, nor does he believe I still exist. Because if he's going to take my life, he's telling me I don't count. You said, what does this have to do with technology? What they've done is they've taken technology and they've twisted it, and we bought into it. That's why iPads, iPhones, Android phones, all those things that we use are really no cultural value to us. They're good to get things done. They're good to get a job. They're good to keep you employed. But from a cultural point of view, it does nothing for you. Go to Facebook and try to find something about black culture on Facebook that's not politically driven, but is based on fact. Now, how do you know whether it's based on fact? Because you read something, but not in Facebook. But Facebook was never designed to do that. TikTok has never been designed to do that. We need to go back to our roots, and that's education. That's why it's important. Future work is also based on education. Education is based on reading and understanding. But if you don't read, you can't understand. I think about my teachers, and I'm not a youngster. Okay? I could be over 70. I probably am. But I remember those teachers who taught me and what they were teaching me. Science and technology, which is what this building is a great thing. But you've got to add something to that. And that's a cultural understanding of where you came from, what your parents were, and how they struggled. And you look at what's going on. I went to work at Ford Motor Company. I lasted a week, because it took me a week to understand that putting bolt A in hole B and nut C in the back of it was going to be replaced by robotics. Didn't take me long to figure that out. So I said, what can I do? I'm going to learn how to fix the robot, because it's going to replace me anyway. And that's the thing that we need to move forward to. That's about what the future work is about. Understanding that you're going to be replaced. Remember, I started off talking about AI. AI is artificial intelligence. Yeah, but it's not artificial because somebody created it. But it's here now. Understand that we need to move to a new platform. But at the other side of that, we need to have people who create that platform, who can fix that platform, and move that platform forward. But it's not culturally where we're going to go. Because that doesn't create warmth in your heart for another human being. That only creates wealth, but that only creates money. To be a person, you need a little bit more than technology.
I just want to kind of take the angle from what some of the comments that we shared, because I think conversation around technology is actually important. But I also think it's important for us to contextualize, because I certainly, of the generation I grew up in, support the need for young people, to read and read as much as they can. But I also have to accept the fact that this is a generation where reading is probably 50-50 of how they also gain information. And so, in addition to reading, you have to give young people the skill to discern information, because this generation is going to consume information on TikTok, on Instagram. That's not changing. 20 years ago, when I went to the library in Patterson, New Jersey, on Broadway, there was a library. They're now media centers. Libraries in probably another 20 years will just be media centers, right? And so the concept around physically having books in their hands, or whether you read them here, or whether you listen to them on audio tapes, this is where we are moving to, right? And so for me, the conversation morphs from not just teaching young people about how do we get an appreciation for reading, but also how do you have appreciation for understanding information and discerning good and quality information, good and quality videos or streams or clips or reels versus stuff that's just crazy and foolishness for that matter. And so it's how we use that technology, and how that is applied. The conversation around artificial intelligence is not a conversation. There was an article I was reading, Science Weekly, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, that talked about this artificial intelligence program that was created that became, the conversation is, what will happen when AI becomes sentient? And the word sentient simply means when it can think for itself. When a program or a computer has the ability to say, I don't want to die, I want to live. And that is going to happen. That is inevitable. That is where we will be. And the fundamental question will come from us as a community. We go from being people who've been given life to now giving life to something else. And how will we in the culture handle that? What jobs, what opportunities, what will exist, for our young people to be able to find ways to work alongside, those sentient related beings? Because it's going to happen. This is not science fiction. This is not Star Wars. This ain't Star Trek. This is year 2022, soon to be 2023, and beyond. And everything we saw in our sci-fi movies and pictures, when I go back and watch, Star Trek and watch Gene Roddenberry and everything he talked about, almost 80% of that stuff is done now. Right. The only thing we haven't figured out how to do is transport ourselves from one place to another. And they're working on that now. How do you break down atoms? Remember, and you folks think remember this, but the old school movie, The Fly. You got to the chamber, the bird fly showed up in the other chamber. We're probably about 20 years away from the ability to break down matter, transport it, and have matter reassemble in a physical space in the same way it was again. So this is not science fiction. This is real. And I think teaching young people about the fun of STEM and science, and making them interested in the fact that the technology that they use is going to help propel human existence forward. The question is, where will Black folks be in the midst of that human existence? And so that is what we in education, as I said before a second ago, talking about how do we normalize and monetize conversations around education. We don't give our young people the benefit of the doubt. I don't think we give young people the respect that they deserve, that they understand these devices a heck of a lot better than we do. I got a 2.5-year-old who was out dinner with myself and my mother the other night, and that boy is swiping away, changing his movies, moving through the screens, turn it on, turn it off. My son is autistic in doing this. So don't tell me, no matter what classification a child will come into and who that child is, they don't have the ability in this generation to achieve the technology, the devices, or process the information that we have. And I think that is where we need to move to, is teaching our young people about the appreciation of learning, of reading, of writing, of math, but doing it in a way that fits where they are and who they are. Because we ain't going back. I respect the fact that the library was 1,600 books for them. That is amazing. But these young people are never going to see them. It is not going to happen in this generation. It's just not. Those books don't exist now in libraries anymore because they've been digitized. And so the question is, are we providing more access to young people for them to be able to read books and articles and periodicals and conduct research on their respective devices? Because that's where we're headed to. That's where we are. And to turn a blind eye to it is only doing what we, as folks typically do, is we hold our feet to the ground and go, we don't want to change the times. Time to change. And these young people are going to force us to change. And it is our fault to do so. We owe it to them to be able to create more opportunities and hear and listen and provide those chances. Because we won't know what's coming. I guarantee you they do. I guarantee you they can probably tell you about what's going to be the future of the next 5 or 10 years faster than any of us can. Because we're reading about it, because we are. They're learning about it in the moment. This just in, so-and-so created so-and-so and so-and-so. Move to the next slide. This just in, so-and-so did so-and-so, so-and-so. They traveled into the space. This, move to the next slide. That's how they're getting information now. And so we have to create a curiosity in them when they get that information for them to be able to say, you know what, let me stop and go back. Now let me go on Google and research. What was that thing I just heard about? This thing that sounded really interesting. And read more about it. And so getting young people to understand and process information and see value in information, to me, is really where we need to move to. Because they're going to be bombarded with information time and time again, all day, every day, the same way we are, right? But our brains have gotten to a point as older folks where we can discern what's trash and what's good. Their brains haven't done that yet. All you gotta do is listen to some of the music they listen to. Or the dance, some of the things I'm like, what are y'all doing, right? But it is the way in which you all speak. It is the way in which young people operate. And if that is the case, we gotta meet them where they are. Because that's where they are. And that's what we need to do.
Well, I agree with everything that my colleagues here on the panel have said. On a very practical level, I think one of the things that has to happen is that we need to bring the leaders of technology and science, industries, and companies into our places of learning. They need to be here at King University. They need to be at South 17th Street School. They need to be at Rutgers. They need to be at Malcolm X Shabazz School. You know, we need to be bringing them in. And they have facilities. You'd be surprised. Most of us would be surprised about how many of these companies have facilities that are in us. Many times these buildings are unmarked or the names are very small on the building. But we need to bring in the leaders from these industries and these companies that deal with science, technology, engineering, and math. We need to bring them into our elementary schools, expose, let them speak to our students, let our students interact with them, make sure they get that exposure, and make sure they talk about, you know, what their companies are looking for when they hire people. And we need to do that, and we need to do it right away. And then we need to make sure that these companies are complying with civil rights and affirmative action laws. If you read right now, if you read about Google and what is it called now, Meta, and some of these other, they don't have good records when it comes to hiring. And we need to make sure that they are hiring qualified African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color. You know, we need to make sure they're doing that because they're not doing it right now. They have a very good PR campaign. You know, when you look at some of their advertising, you would think, man, they must have a lot of black people at their company. You know, they have black women, there are all the pictures and everything, but when you talk to the employees, because I've talked to my son-in-law, I told you about my grandson, my son-in-law is the head of Tech NYC, which is a subsidiary of Google. And when they hired my son-in-law earlier this year, I went to the reception, and I was like, my son-in-law is like the CEO, he's black, but everybody else in the company is white. So one of the things he has to do, one of his challenges, you know, is bring, and this is a challenge for that entire industry. So this is very important. But the other thing I often consider is that, you know, we know, it's no secret that our students, and it's not just black students, American students, are struggling with STEM in terms of achievement. And this is paradoxical to me, that black students are struggling with science because black people invented science. You know why we invented, y'all know that, right? You know, we invented science. I mean, everybody knows that there are 3 pyramids, but if you actually read the books that were written, they were technological marvels. You know, they talk about pi, they talk about the Pythagorean theorem, and other things. The Egyptians knew all that. They couldn't have built the pyramids without that. I mean, the amount of mathematics, you know, they talk about Pythagoras, but they don't tell you that Pythagoras went to Egypt. They all say that. When you read Plato and Socrates and others, they went to Egypt to study science, philosophy, and engineering. They were so enamored with the Egyptians that the Greeks said their gods came from the land of the blacks, came from the land of the people of burnt faces. And one of the things I would urge people to do, how many of you heard about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, his book, They Came Before Columbus? Right. You should read that book. But Dr. Van Sertima wrote extensively on black contributions to science, both ancient and contemporary. Right now, if you Google Ivan Van Sertima, science and technology, right now, this second, you'll get a whole row of YouTube selections of his lectures on science and technology. And I think this is very important, and you know, people don't know, but Ivan Van Sertima, before he passed away, he and his wife both were members of the People's Organization for Progress. Believe it or not, it's true. He actually joined when we had a program down there in New Brunswick when he was teaching at Rutgers. He joined when he came to our Martin Luther King program. That was about 12, 15 years ago. But I just think it's important that we have to attack this issue from the very practical, you know, in terms of linking these industries to our educational institutions, making sure our students get exposure. I mean, we should be taking our kids on class trips. You know, when I was in elementary school, we had class trips. Do they do class trips anymore? They would take us on class trips to the museum, and the museum in New York, and so on and so forth. Do you know that the brother, the person that heads up the science program at the Natural Museum of History in New York is a brother? What's the brother's name? He on TV all the time. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Could you imagine that? The head of the astronomy program at the Natural Museum of History in New York City is Neil deGrasse Tyson. You should look at his stuff. He's all over Facebook. He gives science, little short science lectures every day. Just Google Neil deGrasse Tyson or look up Neil deGrasse Tyson on Facebook. And he's talking about science all the time. And you know, brother was mentioning how all the stuff in science fiction. Do you know that they have actually done experiments already? What's that thing called? They beam us down? They've already done experiments in teleportation of particles. See, we learn about physics, but we don't learn about quantum physics that operates on a whole nother set. It's called quantum physics because it doesn't even operate by the laws of basic physics anymore. Not at the molecular level, but at the atomic level. Electrons, neutrons. You know, when we were in school, they taught us about electrons, neutrons, and protons, right? They got about 20 other particles they have discovered. And they have already done experiments teleporting particles. Do you know they've already done experiments with time travel? Einstein had a working theory. You know, we think of time, past, present, and future like it's all separate. It's one. I mean, and we think of 3 dimensions, length, width, and depth. There might be 32 dimensions. There might be more than that. We talk about planets that we can live on. There are, in our own galaxy, they're saying that there may be 1 billion habitable planets. But we just haven't mastered yet the ability to travel at light speed.
That's number 2.
You know? So because if you say that the next habitable planet is 100 years away, 100 light years, that's the distance that light would travel at 186,000 miles a second over the course of a year. So you gotta have a whole nother mode of travel to travel at that speed. I'm just saying that we have to expose ourselves, and if we just look at this foolishness all the time, like I do. I mean, I have fun with my phone. I look at stuff. I ain't gonna tell you what I be looking at. You know, I look at stuff, but you gotta put the other stuff in there too. You gotta put the serious stuff in there too. We cannot let black people get left behind in the 21st century. No, it's unacceptable. There's not gonna, you know, like Star Trek, right? Just tell me to shut up, George. I know I'm going on. It's like Star Trek. I look at Star Trek, and I'm like, this is the same old plantation arrangement. You got Captain Kirk, the white man sitting in the chair, master. You got the sister over there, his love interest, Thomas Jefferson, and what was his love interest? And no black man on the bridge. There were no black men on the bridge of Star Trek. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. And the only black serious character they had one time was a brother who was a villain. Because he was going to take the ship, give the ship independent intelligence, and you know the whole thing I'm saying. There were no black men on the bridge. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. There was an Asian man on the bridge. There were no black men on the bridge. And the bridge is what counts. Don't tell me there was a black man tap there in the mess hall, because that's where it is where we are now. I want a future where we're in control. I want a future where we're equal. I want a future where we have power. I don't want to be somebody supporting actor in the future. I want to be the winner of the Oscar in the future. And that's how we have to start thinking. I don't care how bad our situation looks. Yeah, we got crime. We got our children being killed. I'm going to Latrell Duncan's funeral tomorrow. Yes, we got a problem, but I'm here to tell you today, we are a great people. And we're going to be a greater people. We are only limited by the parameters of our imagination. That's the only thing that limits you. And that's not metaphysics, that's what our history shows us. Who could have survived enslavement for 250 years? Who could have risen from cotton fields to the White House in 150 years? Everything we get in, we take it over. That they don't, in a minute, they had baseball, we took that over. They had football, they took that over. Now they in all the parks playing soccer. We gonna take that over too. Because the African brothers are gonna take that over. Do you know that a black man from Kenya set a new record, ran a marathon in 1 hour and 59 minutes? Do you know that that's putting almost 27 miles together? Each mile is 4 minutes and 30. Don't tell me about Superman and Clark Kent. That's the real Superman. A black man that can run 26.2 miles in less than 2 hours. Only subscribe, only limited by the parameters of our imagination. I don't know, I'm not going to say nothing else today, because I done took everybody's time.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of cap off on this, because I do come from a stagnant place, which is data and research. I went to a conference in Arizona where a gentleman said, in joking, that we have more sneakers in our home than we have books. He also said that if by chance the internet and the electricity goes out and you're tied to that technology and you have no books in your home, physical books I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that. Those books that you read off these devices that damage your eyes. There's reports saying that these devices are killing the eyes, right? So the whole idea that we must follow the young. I got 3 sons, and early on I wouldn't follow them nowhere. When a culture is allowed to get behind the young and follow the young, you've done. Because what happens to the wisdom of those who came before them? The lessons that came before them. We're to guide our children, not follow them. And if a new technology is brought to our children, we better vet it out first. As versus just handing it to them. Because look what's going on right now. They're being entertained by these devices and we think it's cool and they're learning, but look what's going on. We can't follow the young. I'm on the wrong planet. I took a left and I should have took a right, but there's no way in the world. And I love the young. I'm a father. Love them with all my heart, but I wouldn't follow them. They haven't been here long enough. They haven't read enough. And they just started putting together their book collection, even though they don't inherit mine, but at the end of the day, we can't do it. We can't. We have to step in front of them and say, no more. We're giving you your shot. You've had your little reign, but we have to rein them in and let wisdom, knowledge, and understanding be put back into the matrix of our relationships. Technology, I love it. I use it. I'm not guided by it. And I don't believe half of what I read on it until I verify. But that's just my soul feeling. That's just my soul talking to your soul that there's no way I'm going to follow you. No. I will guide them, I will give them all that I have. But following them without having them seasoned into themselves, no way. Now, I'm going to just briefly go over this study, and it's, you can write this down, it's Jesus College in Cambridge did a study of the future of work. It's Jesus College of Cambridge, the future of work. You can get it online, you can download it, it's free. What they claimed in this study was, most of what kids are currently learning in school will be irrelevant by the time they're 40. Irrelevant. So when they speak about the creation of this useless class, the methodology and the conversations are going on as we speak, and have been going on for the last 10 years. I mean, anytime there's a discussion about the future, and we're not talking about circumventing this idea of the useless class, where are we? Technically, where are we? The data exists. We can follow it. We can read it. Not on a device, paper. I'm in love with paper. I need actual papers and books and things. But early on when I mentioned, you can give a kid a great education. You can send them to Harvard, Yale, wherever. But if you don't develop that mature mind first, see, the best we can give our children is the techniques for developing a mature mind. Because then everything else works, right? Everything else works. Let's say you have a kid who did all the right things, and we know many of them, can't get a job in their field, depressed. What is the suicide rate now amongst our children? Right? But a mature mind will help you navigate those tools that you learned and use them in other places. So at the end of the day, I would love to see a course in just a mature mind. Right? I mentioned earlier, we tell kids to grow up at your age, but do we give them the strategies and techniques for developing that mature mind? We don't. We just say, grow up, you're 18 now, you're an African man, Can't do that anymore. Not in a world where there's all this data that exists. So my recommendation is you develop think tanks in your community that are crunching this data, that are giving reports to each other, to the mayors and to the principals and to everyone, so they can begin to understand what we're facing. Economics is warfare, I said earlier. Economics is warfare. It's not just about getting a job. No, it's warfare. So that is my spin, that is my hope, that we begin to use this data so we can clearly prevent the rise of the useless class. Thank you.
We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Anybody got any questions or things that you'd like us to say? Yes. Yes, Don.
The great panel. I have a couple of concerns. Inviting the fox into the hen house, is that
I hope we're not suggesting that bringing the boxes in.
When you invite corporations to talk to your children without you first sitting together and deciding what's going to happen. That's what happened with the medical industry here. That's why pharmaceuticals are so in front of actual health, because I want to say it was Ford, I could be wrong, one of those rich white people took over the medical industry. So doctors learned how to treat illnesses with drugs as opposed to treating it naturally. Doctors said for years smoking was fine. There's nothing wrong with smoking.
There was nothing wrong with smoking. They encouraged it. Calm your nerves down. So I think that before we invite, which is a great idea to invite industry to our babies, that you sit down together, the superintendents, the principals, the teachers, and decide the parameters of how they will speak to. When you hire a nanny, you don't just go get anybody. You interview them. You say, these are my requirements. The other thing, monetizing why education has value. That's another good idea. But some of our children want it now. The corner boys, they want it now. So, along with the monetary benefit, we have to suggest to them that there's a lifelong benefit to learning. And again, I'm with Brother Zoe with books. I love books. Superstorm Sandy, people ran out of energy to power up their. I am the one person, everyone that still has a flip phone, just so that you know. So they didn't have the ability to go online or whatever, but they needed to have a book. My neighbor from Jamaica, her children were like, oh, I want toast. So she took out the black cast iron frying pan, put it on the stove with fire, and made toast. So I'm not following. My niece is brilliant, she's studying for a PhD, but sometimes she says stuff that's just crazy. And it's like, no, baby, So she's my IT person. But we need to encourage reading. We need to have books on the shelves. We need to encourage writing. Yes. Some of these children cannot write. I wrote on the board notes, and they were like, what's that? Like, did I write it too small? Oh no, we don't know what that said. Cursive. You know, there are things that, yes, they're old school, we're not going to do that anymore. But at the end of the day, there are some basics that everyone needs. So again, great panel, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, respond real quick. I agree with everything that you said. The other thing about the future of work is that what they're calling it now is a gig economy. And this is a very dangerous concept because a gig is simply like straight pay with no benefits. The future of work cannot be straight pay with no benefits. We must have benefits. We must have, like for instance, why is healthcare tied to a job?
Yes.
Why is that? My daughter broke her leg this summer. She had left one job, started another, but you know, in some of these jobs, your health benefits don't kick in immediately. She broke her leg before her health benefits kicked in. So now we gotta pay for everything. And she had multiple fractures in her leg and had to have 2 operations. We need universal health care in this country. Universal single payer health care. I got a friend in Toronto I talked to the other night. His wife had a baby. He said the only thing he spent was $7.25 for the cab to get home. That's our next door neighbor. That ain't Russia, that ain't China, that's Canada, our next door neighbor. So this whole thing of a gig economy. Then the other thing is, we also, in addition to teaching our children how to get in and work for corporations, we also need to teach them how to work for themselves. We need to teach entrepreneurship. And I'm telling you, that's something that has to be taught. Now, some people have innate abilities. You know, some people like, I don't care what you do to them, they're going to survive and going to do well. But entrepreneurship takes some training too, so we need to teach that. I didn't want to take away from the question.
Somebody else, please. was a hand in the back.
Good morning. My name is Regina Gracie. I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. The question that I have, because you guys had a vivid discussion about the future of work in artificial intelligence and those majors which I have studied. I went to LIM in New York. So we did extensive studies on artificial intelligence and the need of it replacing the workforce through automation. So a lot of people don't know artificial intelligence is robots. Robots will be replaced in the future. Robots have already started. We have companies in North Jersey, they're doing surgeries on individuals. A lot of things are going on with it today. So it is going to be a lot replacement. But my question is, where does that leave us with our children in the classrooms with getting that? When is the curriculum going to change? Whereas they're getting that technological base within the classroom embedded into the curriculum daily. What I noticed, because I do a lot of advocacy for children and education, is that if you look at the homeschool network, a lot of parents who are homeschooling their children, and their children can get a GED at 16 and go to college. So a lot of them, I'm noticing, when you go to the mall, Apple has workshops, and they have classrooms. They're not waiting for Apple to come to them. They're taking their children to Apple. Like, when are we gonna look at that infrastructure? We mentioned field trips in the classroom. When are we gonna take our children to these field trips? You have IBM, you got AT&T, you got a lot of major corporations that still exist today. They might not be making telephones, but they've changed their usage. So when are we gonna look at curriculum change if we know that this is coming and we know that the African American population is going to be hit the hardest through this transition?
So I'm going to say really quickly, thank you for that question. I think number one, we have to accept that we're here, right? You know, it exists. I mean, I have a really cool device in my house. You know, it's a Sharp vacuum, right? Now, you young people may not know what a vacuum is. Let me tell you what it is. Back in the day, when you go to a device that you would turn on and plug it in, go boom, and it would suck up the dirt in your floor. I now have a device in my house where I just hit the app and the little sucker in the circle runs around and picks up all my dirt. That is going to be commonplace in their world. There will be a time, legit time, maybe 10, 15 years, not even one generation, where a vacuum will no longer even be commonplace of the device that we are accustomed to it being. To the point you shared about what is happening in schools and technology, we are coming out of the worst global pandemic in the history of human existence that many of us have lived through. And so the ability to have conversations between parents and districts around what will be different today, not tomorrow, what's going to be different today coming out of the pandemic is a question that I encourage every parent and every student should be asking their teachers and their principals and their school board members. What is going to be different? Students can now, if you can't take Mandarin or Arabic language in your school, there are online programs that you can now co-work with students between Shabazz, Roseland Parks, Plainsville High School. You can have over 20 kids logging in and learning a language and leaving one class and going back to their classroom when they're done. Technology has created opportunities to break down borders and provide more opportunities for our students. But the question begs, who will force educational systems? Because systems don't like change. Systems, even through the pandemic, folks were resistant. Oh, we can't teach these kids online. We can't do it. And we did. And we learned so much how to do it that we're at a point now where we're trying to figure out for ourselves, well, what do we do with it now? And I think every young person who's sitting in this room, every adult who understands what we're talking about should be having conversations with people in your schools about what is going to change today, not tomorrow, not next year. What are the new best practices to incorporate learning, reading, comprehension, mathematics, and STEM in an environment that is applicable to young people so they can progress and move forward? Thank you.
Okay, we're unfortunately running over time. So I'll leave you with this last thought. When's the last time you went to a school board meeting? If you don't go to those school board meetings and start saying something, life will stay the same. You can control your own destiny, but not by staying home. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day.